Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins. Let's chop it up. Hello, Chop Squad. I have our guest today on this episode is Thomas Salazar Carter, Esquire. He serves as a business attorney representing clients throughout the Inland Empire, St. Gabriel and Pomona Valleys. Tom Carter, which is affectionately known, began his legal career in Washington D.C. in 2007 before joining the law offices of Ronald Vera in Claremont as an associate attorney. In 2011, Mr. Carter garnered the position of General Counsel to NationalLink, and that is an industry leader located in Glendora, California. These positions serve Tom well in providing respected professional legal experience in the business arena. Hence, he's on the business job. Again, Mr. Carter successfully launched his own business law practice in 2014, representing businesses. Tom's focus continues to be on commercial litigation, business transactions, contracts, franchises or partnerships, startups, and more. So that's all of our audience, and appreciate you being here. Welcome to the Business Shop, Mr. Carter.
Thank you very much, Audrey. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast, and I really like your background of a cloudy day in Cleveland.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's kind of like that too.
Yeah, is it out there? We finally got sunshine out here in California. So.
Oh well, yeah. I see you looking through your window there. I can see it peeking through.
Yes, finally.
Right. Yes, definitely. Yes.
We've had a strange year with tons of rain, and in June we have usually some June gloom, but we've had rain over the last 5 days. Very weird year.
Oh,
we'll take it.
Yeah. Because I can remember seeing some news reports on the sides of the hills and the mountains, rather than all the flowers and.
Oh yeah, the poppies, the California poppies are everywhere. It's it rarely happens, but hey, we take it.
I know that's right.
On the freeway, you get a show.
Yep, everyone's out with their cameras, holding them outside the window, and
yeah, it can be dangerous. There's a lot of fools out there,
Let's chop it up today about law and business. Let's just go straight to the jugular. We start a business, we have our product or our service that we offer. We're expert, of course, in those areas. So what are those top 5 legal mistakes to avoid?
Well, top 5 legal mistakes. Okay, well, let me first preface it by saying, whether you're an experienced business person or somebody who's just getting started, and you've already sort of won in the sense that you're here, you're learning. A lot of people will just go right into business, not think about a foundation. They don't think about accounting. They just, hey, we can make some money here. And then they get into problems down the road and they have to backtrack and they lose so much time and money. So if you're here, if you're trying to listen to this podcast, you're trying to learn, that's great. So that's step number 1. So the top 5 business mistakes people make, is that what I'm to address?
That's it.
Got it. Okay. Well, let me
get us out of trouble before we get in trouble.
Absolutely. The first thing I would say is not making a decision on the type of business you're going to have. Now, across the country, it's pretty much the same. All the jurisdictions have a little bit of a tweak, but what you have is, why do people start business entities? If they think corporation or an LLC, the number one reason is to shield yourself from liability, from personal liability. So the business stands on its own. It has its assets, its accounts, it has its contracts and obligations. And if there were liability, whether, slip and fall inside your store, who do they go to? Can they sue the corporation, or can they sue the owners of the corporation? Okay. People don't want their bank account, their house, their land, out in the country that they inherited. They don't want that on the chopping block. That's why once they start their entity, then it allows them to operate freely, knowing that any mistake could not be a disaster. The business has to deal with it, not them. So people should usually start by making that decision. You don't have to have an LLC or a corporation. You could be a sole proprietor. That's totally fine. And the issue for that is that you are on the chopping block. If there is liability, they're going to come to you.
Yeah.
If money's owed, they're going to say, okay, come with it, or we're going to sue you, get a judgment, and file a lien on your house, do all those nasty things that nobody wants. They could drag you to a debtor exam. That's not fun, right? A lawyer under oath saying, bring your tax returns. I want to see everything you own. It's not fun. So, yeah. So you want to avoid all those things. But you, in a lot of circumstances, you could be a sole prop. Like my firm, for a very long time, I was a sole prop. But that's okay for me, the lawyer, because I have insurance up to the hilt, right?
Right.
In air. So it's like, okay, well, and I have workers' comp and slip and fall, but I didn't need, necessarily to do that because the taxation is the same. Okay. So that's number one, is make your decision as to what you want. Like for me as a lawyer, and maybe in your situation, you could be a sole prop, or likely you want to do an LLC or a corporation. Get that done first. Put things in its name, open accounts, a checking account in its name, get an employer identification number and all those things, and operate that way. The second thing, if I may go right into it, and let me just also make one caveat, which is everything I say isn't legal advice. And it's important that people out there know that. And that's, of course, lawyer talk. But it's important that lawyers make it clear that I don't know your particular situation. Yes. So you don't want to take this and just run with it. This is just educational, and that's good. Okay. People can learn stuff from it. The number two thing, and I put it right up there with the first, is failing to deal with your employees the way the law requires. That's a long way of saying, watch it if you're going to have any employees. Okay. And I'm in a state where I consider California the worst in the country. And that's sort of my opinion, but I'm on the employer side. And it's just, what I see is what I call an epidemic of legal extortion throughout the state. Wow. There are righteous legal claims, employment law claims, people are discriminated against or wrongfully terminated. There's a lot of righteous ones, but in my experience, that's like 1 out of 10 is righteous and has merit. Most of them I see are akin to just shakedowns. Okay. Somebody, you have an employee, for whatever reason, they dislike you, or, you try to discipline them and they get in a huff. And so next thing you know, they get a doctor's note and they go out and you never hear from them again. And then they go and get a lawyer. Next thing you know, you have a letter from a lawyer saying you did X, Y, and Z. Oh. And in California, it's rampant. I know in Ohio, they have this too. I don't think it's as bad as California, but it is. I know Ohio has those.
Yeah. I had a client go through a similar situation.
Yeah. And it's rough. And the business owner, their hair turns white. That's the first thing they think of when they wake up. It's the last thing they think of when they go to bed. It freaks them out. Oh my God, I'm being sued and they're asking for a ton of money. Someone else will say north of $2 million, just throw it in there.
Right.
And people freak out. So, that's why in those instances, you want to go to a lawyer who could explain, give it context, to deflate the hype that's going on in your head and say, no, don't worry. They're coming after you for millions. It's ridiculous. Here's how it works. Okay. You're probably going to have to let them wet their beak. Probably going to have to give them a little bit of cheese, a few thousand just to get them to go away. And you may feel unfair to you. It is unfair. But we're not dealing with fair. We're dealing with the law, and the law says that they could do this. So it's part of doing business in Ohio, California, wherever you are. You have to really consider that. And failing to deal with your employees the right way is not having a file, not having an employee handbook with step-up discipline procedures.
Okay.
Maybe, and this happens, I see. So let's say you have several employees, you never had a problem. You don't really keep records of your employees. And then all of a sudden you have a problem employee and you start writing them up, right? Okay. Well, in discovery, when there's a lawsuit, the lawyer is going to say, okay, so you don't write anybody up. And now you just start writing my client up and keeping a record of how bad my client is. It seems to me that you are targeting my client and just had a design out to terminate them. And this really was vengeful. Now you've painted yourself into a corner. Ugh. So Yeah, I know it's nuanced and sometimes illogical, but you want, right? You want to keep good employee files, treat employees equally. Don't get involved in their personal lives.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I tell people, don't go into business with family. If you can avoid it, don't. It's just, there's too much emotion built into it when business is business. And sometimes you have to treat people like, hey, this is business.
Right.
Doesn't some work with family, right? So I say avoid overlap.
Okay.
So watch out for your employees, most definitely. You mentioned that you have people you talk to who've dealt with that.
Yes, I have a client that went through that, and it was, she ended up resolving it, but in her favor. But but like you said, it was a person was just trying to extort money.
Yeah. And you see it a lot more now. Do you remember the phrase ambulance chaser?
Yes.
Okay. So for those who are listening, it's basically a term, kind of a derogatory term for a lawyer who is a scummy and sees an injury, sees an ambulance, says, oh, I can make a buck. I'm going to chase that ambulance down, follow the guy into his hospital room, give him my business card and make a buck. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was big for forever. And it kind of always has been and still is. But in the 80s and 90s, it's shifted because, the onset of video and I think insurance, right? Insurance companies got wiser and just started tightening the purse in terms of not paying out those settlements so much. So it wasn't as lucrative. So a lot of those firms that did that, they shifted in the 90s over into employment law. You didn't see these kinds of cases left and right back in the day. You really didn't.
Yeah.
Now it's rampant everywhere. So just keep in mind, that's kind of the mentality. If you're an employer, you're a target.
Okay.
So just protect yourself. And you can't mute completely the possibility of getting a letter from a lawyer or, allegations that you harass. False, bad allegations that can be outrageous. But you can't stop that. What you could do is protect yourself by documenting, keeping the good file, treating the employees, just everything we just mentioned. That's good stuff, right? Okay. Your lawyer likes that when they're like, oh, hey, I got this letter. Tell me you have a file. Oh, yeah, I'll send it right over. Great. Now I can fight back. I could write them a letter saying drop dead. Paraphrasing. Right. So that would be number 2. Number 3, I would say, is not paying attention to, and this seems kind of silly, if you will, and something that seems like small potatoes, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because it applies to every business, because every business has a website. And most people don't know that your website is a big venue for potential litigation for your company. You probably know this, of course, but your website has to be ADA compliant. And people are like, what are you talking about? That's for sidewalk ramps. Like, no, it applies to your website. How could it be? Well, the audio, the links have to be a certain way. The color contrast has to fit so people with vision impairment, can see them. And it applies. And people sometimes do it themselves. They don't follow it. And there's firms who have bots that scrub the internet and look for these things. And all of a sudden you're getting a letter from some law firm trying to shake you down. And they'll start with, we want $70,000, and they'll probably take small chump change. But still, do you want that when you're dealing with business?
That's aggravating.
So absolutely. And sure. The other thing is images on your website. So many people will say, hey, I got a letter from some lawyer for a photographer. I guess Getty Images owns this, whatever the case may be. And they got it. They're like, I thought it was legit. I got it from Google Fair Use Pictures. These are for everybody to use. I wouldn't take anybody's. Well, just because it's on Google Fair Use Pictures doesn't mean it's fair use, right? And it's almost like, I don't know how they get on there. You're being the tech diva, may know more about that than I do.
Because I stay away from that. And if a client gives me a photograph, I'm like, I'll turn into a lawyer at that point, because I'm like, where did you get it? Who owns it? Blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
Otherwise, we're going to use some stock images, or we're going to, if you know the photographer, we're giving that person credit, because
Sure.
that's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Right. Yeah. You've dealt with that before too.
Mm.
It's not hard. I mean, you could, I have an outside website, third party firm who handles my SEO and my website. They guarantee that it's ADA compliant and they know how to do it.
Okay.
And they make sure that the images that are on my website, that I own them and I can prove it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not hard to do. It seems like a small thing, but it's due diligence.
Really, yeah, because people don't want to have their copywritten work used, and they aren't being compensated for it.
That's absolutely right.
Oh man.
Yeah. So watch out for that, your website. Plus, you're going to have terms of service on there. You may want disclaimers. You're going to be advertising. You want to make sure you're not saying something that could be seen as a misrepresentation. It goes on and on. You really want to consider all these things. Just think that, your business is like a fort and there's always enemy at the gate trying to spear you through the ramparts, if you will. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So number 4 would be not having custom tailored contracts for your business. People will, and I imagine you run across it. Although I imagine your clients are probably a bit more sophisticated and just, starting making sales and not, trusting handshake, word of mouth sort of evidence. Your contracts need to be buttoned up. It's not hard, and a lawyer could do it. A lawyer should do it, because unless you really know what you're doing, it's not hard. But you want to put forth the proper disclaimers, put forth the key elements which need to be in almost every contract, which is like attorney's fees. An attorney's fees provision says, if we have a fight and we have to, go to court and have a decision rendering a judgment, and the person who's going to be deemed the winner gets their attorney's fees reimbursed. Okay. And that's a huge way to up the ante. Now, people think, well, isn't that built in? No, the classic American rule is you pay your own attorney's fees, unless by contract or by statute it shifts. General business contracts, there's most likely not a statute that says you get attorney's fees. I mean, unless there's actual malice or all these other things that are fraud, things are triggered like that. But if you don't have that in there, you don't get it. So put attorney's fees in there, because let's say somebody owes your business $35,000.
Okay.
How much, and you don't have an attorney's fees contract in there, a provision in your contract. How much are you going to pay a lawyer to go after that $35,000? If you have to actually sue, then it could be way more than $35,000. Wow. So you're spending good dollars going after bad dollars without that sort of mechanism, that would help you, whether it's in litigation, mediation, whatever stage you are in the course of litigation. You could use that and say, hey, look, you not only do you owe me the money and you're trying to weasel out of it, but I get my attorney's fees. That ups the ante. You better do the right thing and settle with me.
Okay.
And that's largely what the system is designed to do. The 5th one is I would definitely say, for business mistakes, is not standing up for yourself when people defame your business online. And it's a very tough thing to do, because, as you know, the internet is a mystery. Somebody could be saying something nasty to you, and even if you catch their IP address, it's run out of a server in Latvia. Right. Good luck suing that. What are you going to do? And and that pings it's this big network that you can't do anything, and it's oftentimes you can't sue. For example, and I had one client who had pictures, compromising pictures of a sexual nature on the internet, that were on the internet. And she was kind of being blackmailed by somebody saying, hey, I have these pictures, I'm going to keep posting them. And she was embarrassed by them. It wasn't really a stolen situation. She wasn't really a victim in the criminal sense. Okay. But she was just embarrassed by them and didn't want them on the internet at all. Sure. And she says, well, look, let's sue them. Let's try to find out who these people are. I don't, I'll pay. I just, what do I do? And I said, look, the best thing you could do is just ignore this.
Wow, really?
And that's tough in that particular situation. And again, I'm not giving legal advice.
Right.
Because I said, look, if you pay these, again, consider the servers in Latvia, and that pings to another one in Russia, and that pings to something else in Brazil. Who knows where these people are? How are you going to get a hold of them? You're going to go to the World Trade Organization and try to get them served. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Right.
So, yeah. So if you pay them, you think they're going to go away? They're going to come back and they'll keep trying to harass you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Give me more.
So, and if you write them back, they're going to know, aha, we know we got to her, we could do it. And if you can't fix it on the internet, nobody really cares because nobody's really searching for it. If it becomes a big thing and you keep searching for it, it will get higher in SEO. Yeah. So what? They're out there. I'd say, you just have to deal with it. And it's the wisest thing to do. Why am I saying this? Because sometimes the best fight is the one you never take. And that goes all across for your business clients. Mm-hmm. The best customers are some of the ones they don't take. If your gut tells you don't go with this person, I don't really trust them. You should trust your gut. That's a reason we have that instinct,
Yeah, that's right.
That's my 5. The fifth one got a little off, but when I say people defame your business, let me just round that one out if you don't mind. In essence, people all the time can say nasty things about your business. Now, what's the difference between defamation and opinion? This restaurant is disgusting. I hate it here. It's gross. Do not come here. That is very bad for your business, but that is opinion and protected by the First Amendment.
Okay.
This place got me sick. I was throwing up. I chipped my tooth on their clams and I got ripped off. They overcharged me and ripped me off and refused to give me my money when I pointed it out to them. Now, if those things are false and you could find them out, that's defamation.
Okay.
And, again, like anybody calling somebody you're a crook is defamation per se, meaning it's clearly defamation. You don't barely have to prove that element. Mm-hmm. What do you do when people do trash you online? It's a new-ish thing. I mean, it's been around for decades, but everybody feels it now. Everybody's fighting for that 5-star review. You have somebody who doesn't like you. They give you a 1 star. That's rough. And people want to do something about it. But sometimes people go even further than that and really trash you and say false defamatory things. That's when sometimes you have to go and sue them. And if you sue them, it's not really about damages because damages are very tough to prove. It's about vindication for your business. They could take down that 1 star by force. Okay. They could put an apology and say, look, you could post up, look, I won a lawsuit. This person's, I would say whack job, but
Right. Oh, you're right. Don't start going their way.
Yeah, don't go down that job. Exactly. Don't start throwing the stones you don't want to. So those are some pointers that anybody can do to protect their business. Anybody who's going to have a brick and mortar, the second biggest relationship you're going to have aside from your customers and your vendors is your landlord. Yeah. Very important to read your lease. Know how it works. Probably like most of them, it's what's called triple net, meaning you pay for everything and they do it. So but know how that works. So there's no huge surprises. Like you have to pay for the air conditioning.
We gave us some food for thought for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope it was good.
Yeah, it was. I kind of went straight there. Like, what are those top 5?
Yeah, well, that's good.
That we make because it's whether we've been in business for a while or we're just getting started, we still need that because there's always going to be some type of contract that we're dealing with or hiring. And the other thing, you talked about employees, but you have maybe independent contractors or say somebody working with me on this podcast or anybody, that might come in and do some work for those couple hours and, and they're gone. So even, with that, we should have a contract.
Yeah, well, yes, that's a great question. Great question and very topical. Mm-hmm. The issue that just tingles in my brain is misclassification. Mm-hmm. That word means it doesn't matter what you call people, and even if they sign an independent contractor agreement, what matters is what the law deems an employee or not. In California, we have a very, very tough new law called AB 5. It was passed in, I think, 2018. It has a presumption that you're an employee, unless you meet a very rigorous test. Kind of the anti-Uber law, they call it anti-gig economy law, because they're kind of going after Uber and Lyft. And actually, Uber and Lyft just won in court. So I think it's the California State Supreme Court, I believe. I think it's going to evolve. But really, essentially, you're an employee here. Now, if you're a lawyer, obviously, you're exempt from that. But basically, everybody who just works a normal job or owns their own business, well, unless you're working for somebody, it wouldn't apply, but they are employees. And that means you got to have workers' comp. If you just give them an independent contractor agreement and they work for you, you could get a letter from a lawyer saying you misclassified. They could go to the Labor Commission in California. I'm sure they have a labor board out there in Ohio, and make a complaint. And you don't want that. So if they can be an independent contractor just the way you said, great, but know the law in your state. It's important. It really is. Keep people employees who are, if independent contractors, have at it, but just be right on that. Big landmine. I know it's not fun talking to me, right? I just tell people bad news.
Yeah, I agreed to have you on here. But
I'm a downer, but that's why people come to attorneys. We deal with the hard stuff.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, when we need you, we need you.
Sure. Exactly. And that's our role. But look, like I said in the beginning, if you're watching this, if you're doing it, if you're learning, you're going to be listening to you, listening to me, listening to any of your other guests, which I saw some of your previous guests, very interesting. You learn a lot, and you're going to be way ahead of the game because you'll never know everything. Yeah. But you got to be like a sponge and learn all you can and be curious. Ask those questions. There's no dumb questions. You're trying to make money. You're trying to, earn a living. Yeah. Do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how can we get in touch with you, Tom?
Sure. Well, I'm at Tom the Business Lawyer on Instagram. And you can always, my law firm is www.tscarterlaw.com. People don't say www anymore. I haven't heard that in a long time.
I know. You're going to get 10 lashes with a wet noodle. Don't sue me.
I am. It's my fault. I'm a creature of the 80s and 90s.
Yep. Hey, I came from that. I'm there too.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So folks, at Tom, the Business Lawyer, Instagram, and definitely his website at tscarterlaw.com. Plug into him, follow him, and definitely you need some help, with some contracts or just setting up your business. And even if you're already established, you don't have an attorney, it's always good to just have a review. Would that be fair to say, Tom?
Sure. Take it to a lawyer just to review. They don't need to rethink the wheel. If the one you've been using is fine, just take it to a lawyer to bless it and make quick notes, because there may be one or two things that you really should have in there that you don't.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if you don't have a final word of advice for us as business owners when it comes to legal stuff, we like to have that.
Sure. The number one thing I would say is when these problems arise, which everyone has the problems, we all deal with those problems that freak us out. When legal problems arise or threaten your business, don't freak out. It's a waste of time. You can deal with it, get a good perspective, and I would recommend getting a lawyer if the situation warrants, and handle it in a professional way, and don't take it personally.
Don't take it personally, Chop Squad. All right, well, Tom, I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your expertise here today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Audrey, and thank you to the Business Chop. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for listening to The Business Chop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businesschop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.